Hi, we are Team 2 working on Project Nickel. I am the Industrial Analyst Dookyung Kim. This is our table of contents for your reference. We devised a business to enable companies and stakeholders to obtain nickel at a reasonable price because we found out that nickel prices get distorted due to investors' irrational behaviors related to attention in the electric vehicle market. Our business is based on the research on existing demand and supply factors of global nickel prices and anomaly found in correlation between attention on the electric vehicle market and the price of nickel. First of all, I will talk about existing demand and supply factors of nickel prices. As of early December, the nickel price at London Metal Exchange is on the rise recently at around $16,000 per ton. Global nickel prices have been repeated bull market and bear market due to the major demand and supply factors since 1970s and have recently shifted to upcycle. Nickel prices are determined by two major variables: global stainless steel production volume and nickel ore supply restrictions in Indonesia. Since the suspension of operations caused by COVID-19 in March, demand has recovered in China, which accounts for about half of the world's nickel demand, and stainless steel production has been steadily rising. With about 70% of nickel demand being used in stainless steel manufacturing, nickel prices show a similar trend to stainless steel production in China, the main source of demand. In addition, as Indonesia, the world's largest nickel producer, has implemented restrictions on raw ore exports since January, supply restrictions have led to a rise in nickel prices. Furthermore, the increasing use of nickel as a substitute for cobalt, which is relatively expensive in electric vehicle batteries, is one of the reasons for the increase in nickel demand. However, it should be noted that EV secondary batteries account for only 3% of total nickel demand as of 2020. The secondary battery value chain can be subdivided into mining, which collects minerals such as lithium and nickel under natural conditions; materials processing, which processes collected minerals in the form of intermediate materials such as precursors; and component production, which produces anode by combining lithium and precursors. Various metal minerals such as lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, aluminum are used for anode materials that determine the energy density of secondary batteries. Nickel is considered as a key material because the higher the proportion of nickel, the longer the driving distance of electric vehicles. Also, it accounts for 15% of battery production costs. LG Chem and other Korean battery makers are currently focusing on NCM, which is nickel, cobalt, and manganese batteries, which are mainstream and are especially focusing on increasing nickel content. Since Korean companies import all of nickel, a rise in nickel prices could lead to a rise in manufacturing costs, leading to worsening corporate profitability. In this context, making efforts to secure raw materials while minimizing the risk of nickel price fluctuations is important, and major companies respond through long-term contracts, etc. Looking at the price of nickel recently, you can find something interesting. Nickel prices rose 13% during the month of August when Tesla shares soared on the US stock market with announcing 5-for-1 stock split on 11th. Tesla shares closed 12.57% higher than the previous trading day on August 31st, the first trading day since the stock split. On the very day Tesla split the stock, Korea's Daesin 2X Nickel Futures ETN soared 11.66% during the day.
Hi, I'm data analyst Jamin. From the case of Tesla stock split, is that a really good news to nickel? As we explained before, the price of nickel is formed by the supply and demand of nickel. For example, closing of the nickel factories or starting new nickel mining projects are significant issues in nickel price. The secondary battery accounts only for about 3% of nickel demand, and the impact is not significant to the nickel price. Furthermore, the day of stock split of Tesla was not on news because it announced it before, and even stock split is not related to demand of nickel. This means that it is irrational. We could find these irrational behaviors in the market. Following chart is about attention index to EV and daily percentage change of nickel price. We use attention index to compare the relationship between EV and nickel. We made attention index as weighted average of searching volume of EV news. If you look at the movement of the chart, you can easily see that nickel price fluctuates a lot at a time when the attention to EV was high. From here, we could know that attention to EV matters to nickel price. So, we made our model to analyze the how much impact of attention of EV affects nickel. Our method concentrates on sensitivity between attention index and percentage change of nickel price. If there is meaningful difference between normal days and high attention day, then it could be useful information to investors. We use data of 3 years of nickel futures price and attention index of EV, and we defined high attention day to offer 10% of probability of normal distribution of attention index. Following table is what we can find through this data. The conclusion is high attention day to EV affects nickel price. In the case of nickel, we could see that the average daily change is about 1.25%. This number is similar in both last 1 year and the last 3 years data. Here's what important is recent 1 year data. The average change is 1.25%, but when the attention of EV is high, the percentage change increases to 1.47%. It implies that nickel price could move more due to EV. Another thing we can see here is that with the recent increase in interest to EV, the fluctuation becomes bigger. For 3 years, high attention days percentage change is similar to average numbers for total. From here, the fact that attention of EV makes nickel price fluctuation bigger, we could use this anomaly to business model for companies who trade nickel. Now we know there is the anomaly found in correlation between attention on electric vehicle market and the price of nickel. We found the reasons of anomaly from behavioral finance studies. Here are a number of biases that may explain the underlying basis of our discovery. First, availability biases. It occurs when probability is estimated by the ease with which similar instances or associations can be recalled. The Green New Deal that the Korean government announced this year and recent hype surrounding Tesla all in all have fueled the increasing popularity of nickel. Nickel has constantly been shown along with news about electric cars since it comprises some of the most frequently used and thus observed secondary cell batteries. Consequently, it may be that the more of two things are exposed together, the more notion of nickel and electric cars coincide in people's minds, leading to availability bias. People who see news about Tesla, pretty much a representative figure of electric vehicles, would not hesitate to expand their investment onto nickel trading. Second, overconfidence and confirmation bias. These are observed when investors are overly confident that they are making correct decisions. We may interpret our event study results as attributing to irrational investors being too certain that a factor to change the EV market would also affect the value of nickel somehow. Overconfidence would make these victims of availability bias show more salient results to make our study more visible. Third, mood and sentiment. Sentiment may intervene when investors make decisions on nickel trading. An increase in attention for electric car companies may indicate signs of abnormal returns, thus creating high sentiment for investors. Those who have high sentiment continue to exert their hype by buying more nickel as opposed to selling them in an opposite case. These biases and sentiment all systematic mistakes that average investors make and cannot be eliminated by market forces.
Hi, I'm the head of IR department, Subin Kim. Biases and the resulting correlation led us to capture timings when nickel prices got distorted due to investors' irrational behaviors and failed to reflect appropriate market price. Therefore, we have devised a business model to enable companies to obtain nickel at a reasonable price. Earlier, we explained the value chain of electric vehicle industry, and there are many intermediate sellers who use nickel to produce and sell various processed goods. This is the very reason to support for this item's success. Some companies will have to keep signing futures contracts on schedule all the time to maintain their business. Because companies usually purchase raw materials in large quantities, even a small change in price can have a significant impact on the company's sales costs, meaning that this item could be largely beneficial. Although our item cannot forecast the future price of nickel, we may do indicate the appropriate timing to buy or sell nickel based on the attention we can detect and analyze. So, how does it work? The app will constantly collect data that may affect the level of attention in the EV market and advise how much the expected volatility of nickel price at a particular point in time is. When it signals the attention in the EV market is overheated, it will show a red warning meaning not now. Otherwise, it will show a signal in blue saying the right time. The reference point to judge the color will be the average attention level that we calculate with our sentiment index. Users can directly determine whether to sign their futures contract or not, or whether to postpone their decision or not by looking at the app in accordance with their raw materials inventories and operation methods. In addition, users will be able to see the cause of attention when they touch the red signal. For example, since nickel is a highly speculative asset for investment, articles related to speculative cases in the past and are similar to the current situation will appear on the app interface when applicable. News directly related to nickel's demand and supply will also be shown. We predict our main consumers as the following: companies which are responsible for nickel trading, manufacturing companies that process nickel, and brokerage houses. We believe big-sized companies such as LG Chemical will be capable of grasping the market situation without using our services. Thus, our target customers would be small and medium-sized companies that need our help. As do most of the great scientific discoveries in history, our finding was also founded upon a number of inevitable assumptions and hypotheses. Here in Risks and Challenges, those assumptions and the shortcomings of our business will be addressed. First, Tesla does not represent the whole electric car industry. The reason we chose Tesla was because we thought Tesla is the main reason of the whole new attention upon electric vehicles market. Tesla has been a hot potato not only among investors, and thus we assume Tesla deserves such a position. In fact, according to Electric, a US-based news source dedicated to electric transportation and sustainable energy, Tesla holds roughly 18% market share of global EV sales, leading the market. Earlier, we mentioned that the number of Google search of keyword per day is used as an indicator of attention of the word. But the number of Google search cannot be the perfect indicator for attention. At least we can assume that the number is proportional to attention level, but no one knows if it's true. In the same context, our experiments use closing bid data. Hence, volatility within a day cannot be observed, lowering the preciseness of our item's efficacy. Third, a time horizon of measurement which is 3 years is perhaps too short to get a full understanding of correlation between the price of nickel and attention on electric vehicles. 1 year is even shorter. If this is indeed too short a horizon, would this project even be meaningful to care about? Last but not least, it is hard to exclude the control variables, which are all the other factors of change. News directly affecting the demand and supply of nickel are more likely to affect the price of nickel than the attention on Tesla. But since there are hundreds of thousands of news being released on a daily basis, all the information cannot be fully incorporated into our data processing. In conclusion, our item Project Nickel has pros and cons but was built upon passionate desire to help out the increasing number of stakeholders that look out for nickel. Paying user fees to our service may save tens of multiples of sales costs for many companies. Hopefully, we kill two birds with one stone. Thank you.